Check 1, 2. Check 3, 4. Check 5, 6. Check 7, 8. Check 9, 10. Check 11, 12. Check 13, 14. Check 15, 16. Check 17, 18.
It is 6:01, and I call to order this regular meeting of the Anthony Wayne Board of Education. It is Monday, September 12th. Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Present.
Mrs. Brent?
Here?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Here.
Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
All right, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Unless you want to do more. We didn't. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to defer to Jim at this
Yeah,
point.
thank you. Next, we're going to do a moment of silence. The board would like to pause for a moment of silence to remember a fallen timber student, Brody Kerr, who recently passed away. You can join me at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. First thing on our agenda then is to approve our minutes from our August 8th meeting. Were there any questions or comments on that? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Kyle, and a second.
I'll second.
Jana. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And our treasurer's report and financial information, Carrie.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to approve the August 2022 monthly financial reports as presented. And I do apologize for the detailed reports that were like 105 pages. So we're adjusting to some changes in the office, and we will make sure that we pick the detail, but the summary version of the detail. So I apologize, but that's just extra reading if you're paying attention. Under item B is to approve the donations received. We are always very appreciative of these. Under item C, I recommend that the board approve the auxiliary funds for fiscal year 22-23 for both Lyell Catholic School and Discovery Express. Just as a reminder, we serve as the fiscal agent for these funds. They are sent to us from ODE. We receipt the funds in, and then we have an open purchase order. We get an invoice from the ESC requesting those funds, and they make all the expenditures at that time. So, again, we serve as the fiscal agent. There's also Monclova Christian Academy, but if you remember last year, you could pick and choose whether you wanted to receive a direct pay or have it run through the school. And Monclova Christian Academy does take a direct pay, although we still report the expenditures for them, so. But all the expenditures are made through the ESC. Under item D is to approve the CCIP grants and other state and federal grants. So we received Title I, Title II, Title IV, and IDEA. Those are all of our normal. We received Title III, which we participate in the Perrysburg Consortium. Those funds go to Perrysburg, all of the ordering's done by Perrysburg, and because we receive less than $30,000 for that grant, we do that, and that's for our limited English proficient grant. So when we have our teacher that goes to meetings, we use those budget funds to help offset that cost.
Okay.
We do the same thing with the preschool grant, the ESC preschool, that goes to the ESC, and they make those expenditures there. And then the latest and greatest one was the $150,000, that's the K-12 safety grant that was actually from last year when we didn't get, they just cut or quit awarding, so they actually let those districts apply, and so we were awarded that.
Okay.
So we have that to approve tonight as well, so. It's a little weird, we don't have all the ESSER funds, but we still do have ESSER 2, 3, and ESSER ARP, and a few other ESSERs, but they're continuing, so they're not new, but we're still expending those grants. Under item E, I recommend that the board approve the annual appropriation resolution. And I'll focus on the general fund, all the other costs are, you approved them like you just approved a lot of what goes into the appropriations. But we ended the last fiscal year, June 30th, 2022, at $46.2 million. This year, our appropriations are up about $300,000. And a big part, it's all staffing mostly, but you have to remember the cost of fuel and other things that are affecting our expenses, like they affect everyone's home as well. So we have some costs there that we're working through, and then we had staffing, which most of it, obviously, you've already approved all the staffing, and then we added a resource officer, so that was new. So considering everything that we've done, and using the funds that we have through grants.
Social worker, too.
Well, there's a lot of one. HR, social, communications, there's lots of them.
Yeah.
Not to mention all this teaching staff, and, normally we have a little attrition we can take advantage of, and we just didn't have that this year, but it's still only being $300,000 up when $100,000 of that is for a resource officer. We're doing pretty good. We're utilizing grants and ESSER funds the best way we can to serve students, so. Under item F, I apologize, did anybody have any questions on the appropriations?
I'm backing up a little bit too. The safety grant, is that being used for the SRO, the new SRO?
No, actually.
No.
Or no?
Well, I was just going to say if Matt, it's different than that, but no, we're not using it.
Okay.
It would have been nice, but it
And
didn't meet the
So
qualifications.
we applied for that for the signal amplification project, if you remember that.
Okay, yeah,
We
okay.
went through that long process, and it was getting delayed because of cabling and so forth, and now now that we have it in the process of getting it implemented into the 3 buildings,
Okay.
we're waiting on the cable. And Matt, do we have any update on that right now? No.
All right.
So we're still waiting on we have everything else, it's there, it's just, once the cable comes in, they'll be able to put it in and then have that system in
Okay.
place. But
I
that's
think
going
we
to
did
help
talk about
offset
that.
that cost, which
Right.
was what?
Well, now it's down to 400.
Yeah, it was.
Because that was where we
Yeah,
had
it was around
that super duper thing.
$400,000, so
Right.
that $150,000 being applied to that.
Okay.
Right.
We are in the process of applying for additional money that became available as well through safety grant money this year.
Okay.
Be an additional 50,000 for the 3 campus buildings, and then we can apply for 100,000 for each of the others. But it does all have to do with, there are certain pieces of equipment that it's used. that
Okay.
It has to fall in those categories.
Okay.
Which in this case, like using it for the radio system, that would have been an expense that we would have had to pay. So indirectly, it helps reduce our
Sure.
expenses. It's just, feel like sometimes it's
Specific, yeah.
the phrase robbing Peter to pay Paul is
Yeah.
very appropriate sometimes.
The resource officer is not one of the allowable pieces that you can apply for that grant
Figured that,
for.
yeah. Okay.
We do use some of our student wellness and success funds, which are now part of the general fund, but they used to be separate until this last biennium budget, which we're starting year 2 of that. But before that, they always ran through that, so we're still kind of earmarking those funds for that, so. Under item F, I recommend that the board approve Lyell's request to dispose of their, good grief, I can't read my own writing, I apologize.
They have items to dispose.
Yes, that's
approve
what
them.
I was trying to say. Per their letter dated August 2017, we did this back in June.
August
It's
17th.
2022.
It's okay,
I need new glasses, there's no doubt about it.
not a problem.
But they did this back in June, so you're getting another one, but they're just doing some housekeeping. But again, because we serve as a fiscal agent, we have to approve for the disposal of these items. Under item G is I recommend that the board approve ProMedica Employer Services is our third-party TPA now. This used to be David Kodorovic, and we paid him $3,300. Well, he is now part of ProMedica. So I was pleased that the cost remained the same. I can't say I was as excited that that service was merging together. But at the same time, It'll come up again next year, and we'll just see how things go this next year. Dave will still be our contact,
okay.
and so I don't see anything, but again, he serves as the one when we have workers' compensation claims. You know, he's the one that represents us if it goes to court or to trial or hearing or whatever, so. I would recommend that we approve that at a cost of $3,300, September 1st of 2022 through August 31st of 2023. Under item H, I recommend that the board approve the agreement with Midwest Eye. They're located off of Briarfield. This was a property challenge situation where the owner did wish to make a direct payment to the district rather than having the adjustment go through the taxes through the county auditor. So this happens once in a while. However, this will not be permitted, I believe, after December of this year anymore due to some changes with those that went through with Mr. Marin. So some of it was part of House Bill 126, maybe?
legislation.
Yes.
Okay.
And then lastly, I recommend that the board approve the Waterville DRD, which is Downtown Redevelopment Districting. Per Ohio Revised Code, they can do up to 75% for 10 years and do an abatement. Well, they wish to do this project for 30 years, but it's at 70%, so it does require the board to approve this. It's going to be used to, basically, I would say, and Mr. Pedro's here if you'd like to chime in, but it's basically going to make downtown Waterville, give them more opportunity to
yeah.
provide for improvements, infrastructures. And this is basically the same that we did to Monclova Township when they're doing their expansion of the 475 exchange. So that's very similar to what we're doing here, so.
Did you want to say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for letting the city of Waterville come to the school board meeting. I'll tell Dr. Chris that I've been a resident 32 years ago. And I give you a second board meeting, so don't write that down. I'm going to tell the board. But seriously, as Terry mentioned, this is a great opportunity for the city of Waterville to redevelop the downtown district. And one of the procedures is to get the school board approval, and the funding that will be generated go back into downtown, renovate some of the buildings and some of our private and public spaces. So this is like a step, 10 step we have to take, and it's an important step though. So be happy to answer any questions, but we thank you for the opportunity. So I got to say that again?
No.
No, it's fine.
So I can answer any questions?
I don't think so.
No,
I'll just make one comment, because we live in this great community. You might be familiar with the city of Sylvania. They've had this downtown redevelopment district for about 50 years. You can see all the good changes and all the things that have happened in that community. And there's other cities and communities that have them, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with the school board. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I've got to go to another meeting.
And that is all I have,
okay.
which was a very long agenda for September for me. Is there any questions?
ESSER deadline, is there a deadline on when we have to use all those funds? Or is it different with each?
Nope, ESSER 2 is 23, so the end of this fiscal year.
Okay,
ESSER 4 is the end, ESSER 3. ESSER 2 is the end of 23. ESSER 3 is the end of 24. So we will have our funds expended before that because we are using it mostly on salaries to provide services.
Right, the intervention services, we did all of the summer school the last 2 years through those funds, with the exception of at Waterville this year, who had received a significant grant for that money. So, yeah, we've used that to provide services to kids and those interventions to try to help with the learning that may have been lost during COVID. So,
Yeah, all of our funding was based on expenditures for last year out of 22, or fiscal year 22 and 23, or ESSER 2 and 3, was to be spent by the end of 23, so.
there's a list of items that we've spent that money on the website.
Right.
Yeah, it's on the website.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Troy. Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Done. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, Superintendent.
sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay, no worries. First item is, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to recognize our staff, and especially this year. So if Lauren and Debbie could come up to right over here. So, for those of you who know these two, the dynamic duo of water polo, they do an awesome job working with kids each and every day. Their jobs are challenging, sometimes really challenging during the school day. They step up to the plate and do great work together with their staff. Just tremendous learning opportunities that happen in the buildings under sometimes difficult circumstances. So I can't thank you guys enough for the work that you do each and every day for our students. So thank you. And we also formally recognized them at our opening meeting this year, to a great round of applause for their work that they do, and I can't thank you guys enough for what you do. I do want to mention something about Debbie, I think a few football games, I've seen you in some interesting attire. And I think the last one was a big top hat and some blue hair. And, Debbie does a lot of great things in and out of the classroom. And I think back to this summer, she was helping figure out what some things were in a classroom and trying to get those to those people so we could clean out a classroom to use it and for some spaces and stuff. And that's just who she is. She does step up and do things that, it's not expected of her, but she does it, and we appreciate the things that she does. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So just thank you. Next item is facility assessment. Where are we at with that? So Matt and I walked athletic facilities with the collaborative about a week and a half ago. They had shared at that time that they were hopeful to be done by the end of September with the facilities assessments, that they would come to us, we would meet, we would discuss what they found, and then plan out next steps, which would be engaging the community in what we have found and what they are suggesting moving forward. A little bit about that will be as we talk in a few items here about enrollment, where we're at and where we think we're going with that. But I'm excited to see what they've looked at and what they've found. Ironically, since that time, we had a pretty interesting Monday here a couple weeks ago, where Kevin and I were at Fallen Timbers, unfortunately, helping the staff through a difficult situation that morning with the passing of the student over the weekend. And then we got a phone call that water was coming through the ceiling in the cafeteria at the high school, where a pipe that wasn't properly hung by a former renovator, I'll say, detached from the drain in the top of the roof, and which then led all that water from a very heavy rain into the cafeteria, which Kevin and I and the custodial group and operations staff started squeegeeing water and getting it off, the floor and trying to help with that. And, we got that, I think it just opened today for the first time. So it's been, 2 weeks, where JNR Restoration came in and dried it all out, took the drywall all off. We got the pipe replaced, and so now it's totally fine. So it was fast, and I can't thank the operations staff enough for the work that they did to manage that situation. The high school staff jumped into and we made it work under some difficult situation. Then, while we're dealing with that, we get a phone call that there's partial electricity, off at Waterville Primary because lightning had struck a pole which had a transformer, or had some stuff on it, where then that surged to a transformer outside the building, which was Toledo Edison's property, that just basically destroyed that transformer. So we know that we didn't have school the next day, and they came in, and I think they finally got that done, Matt, at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And we were able to go through the next day and found some items that had been destroyed through the surge, and so we're able to get those replaced and move forward. All of those are insurance claims, but I just wanted to mention, it's been an interesting little bit of time here in operations, and, as we go through the facilities assessment, I'm sure there's going to be some things that are recommended moving forward, as we look at, we've had some electrical surges, we've had some issues with that, and looking at some different ways to deal with that, looking at what happens when power failure goes out, and maybe having we have battery backups, but they can only last so long, and so do we go to, gas-powered generators and so forth, and so some good conversations happen from some unfortunate situations, right? And we'll see where we go with that. But I just wanted to mention that moving forward. Strategic planning update. We met with our administrators. They'll be working with the staff on a couple of the goals and looking at what actions can they take to help us achieve those goals, but also are there other steps that we can take to achieve those goals, and providing those recommendations to us. Enrollment report. I'll briefly mention, I sent this to you last week. I'll briefly go over this with you. District enrollment's at 4431. It's down about 9 students from this time last year. I thought we were going to be up, but as we looked at, we had some late withdrawals that were from out of state. Michigan doesn't start until after Labor Day, and we thought we were going to be up a little bit, and they just kept coming in from mostly out of state and so forth. So right now, our lowest enrollment is in kindergarten, which is what we expect, and that's at 245. It's a little bit lower than what it was last year. Highest enrollment is in 11th grade at 382. Puts a little bit more pressure on the high school as far as, the overall enrollment, but that's the largest class. And then the 8th grade class is the second largest, and so they'll be moving into the high school next year, so you'll have the 2 largest classes at the high school next year. The average class enrollment right now is 333. I just wanted to mention that as well. The other thing I'd mention is, we have this transitional shift in our community. I call it Anthony Wayne community. When I first came here back in 2003, Monclova was over 700 students, I believe, or somewhere close to that at that time. And now they're around 543. There hasn't been, I would call a significant increase in houses that are going to be residents for students in Monclova Township. You have a lot of retirement communities, and still growing in that area. But we've seen a little bit more development in White House, and especially in Waterville, and that's where we're seeing some of the enrollment increase. As you know, there's more plans for more residential development in Waterville, and I think we're going to see some in Waterville Township soon because of the location of some of their properties that wrap around Waterville and White House. It'll be interesting to see where Monclova goes now that development has started beyond Albin Road going west. But when you look at that, that's mostly retirement. It's not homes that are going to be occupied by people that are going to have younger children per se. So it's just kind of that shift that we've seen in this, I'll say, 20-year period, 19 or so, in that. And so I think when we look at facilities, we're going to have that conversation of how does that also affect our plans moving forward. I'm not proposing anything. I'm not saying that that we're going to do anything. I'm just saying it's a part of that conversation, right? And then when we look at, we've had our enrollment assessment done back in, I think, 17, when we did the facilities project. When we looked at very, very conservative enrollment numbers, we're kind of still lower than that. Because I think they had us, a couple hundred students more than what we have right now. People always ask me, well, all these houses are going up, why don't we have students? And I think there's definitely a population of younger kids that are not school-aged yet in the community. But we also have to recognize that across the nation, enrollment's gone down in schools. I've seen reports anywhere from 5 to 10%. Over the last 10 years. And so you have that, and I'd say part of that is due to the birth rate going down as well. If you talk to people who were in that typical range of 20 to maybe 35, that where we saw people having kids, they're waiting longer and longer to have children and so forth. So, and we're seeing less births as well. So we play all that in. Some also would believe that as we move forward, we have to be concerned with who's going to move out of the area and move down to Columbus to work at Intel and do all those. I actually heard that as a concern recently of, they have a lot of needs down at that, not just in Intel, but building the facilities. That's going to take a long period of time, and who's going to do all of that work moving forward. So it's interesting to see where we'll go in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think obviously that plays a part into the conversation about facilities moving forward. Next item, the fall renewal levy. We've put that on the ballot back in the summer. This is a levy that's been on the books since 2003, I believe. Originally at 4.85 mils. Now at 2.28 mils. It's a renewal levy. It doesn't cost the taxpayers any more money than it did, from year to year. It's a $3 million fixed amount levy because of the residential growth, because of the business growth, the commercial growth, and so forth. That's reduced that tax burden on our residents from the time it was initially approved back in 2003 until today. It was last approved in 2013 for a period of 10 years, and that's what's on the ballot for this time as well. So I just mentioned that again, that it's going to be on the ballot. Also know that our guidance from the state auditor's office that we've talked about, the last message that I got from our Bassett organization was that wouldn't be shared out until after the court case down in Dayton. So we're waiting to hear. Yeah, you had
It's in October.
an October date,
Yeah.
so it could be before,
3rd.
but it would give us a very narrow window between the time that is up and what we could potentially do as far as promoting the fact that it's even on the ballot. Okay, so just be aware that that's where that's at, and that's about all I can say about it. Quality profile will come out on September 15th. I'm excited about the new format that we have. Rebecca has done a great job with it and putting it together and collecting the information. I'm really excited how it's going to look and how that'll move forward into the future. And I think it's really a testament to what we truly value as far as educating our students in our district. I think it goes way beyond the local report card that will be coming out in the next month or so, and it provides more information about what we truly do to educate kids here in this district. And so more to come on that, but that's going to be released on the 15th. Okay. Item B, overnight trips. You see the one listed there for, I believe it's FFA. Item C, educational agreements, the 5 listed there. I will mention the one at the end with this Lucas County Sheriff's Office to provide the coverage at Monclova Primary. I just want to mention that. We've been working on that for a while now. They've been working there. It's just we've got to finalize that with your action. board policies, I've shared that information with you. I do want to mention one part of that because of, some of the changes that happened over this, when we do board policy updates, primarily this is based on court cases, but mostly based on laws that are passed either at the state or federal level. I do want to mention this one. If you remember, I've shared with you that Senate Bill 215, which is about weapons, that was approved and became effective June 13th, 2022. And it really deals with individuals carrying weapons onto school property in the sense of what we deal with, okay? And I just want to remind you that the language in here states that a person with a concealed carry permit or is an active service member to lawfully carry a weapon onto school grounds either can do so by remaining in their car with that gun or that weapon, or they have to leave it locked in their vehicle. That's per the law, all right? And unless they are authorized to do so. And obviously, the White House Police Department would be authorized to do so, and law enforcement agencies like that. But I just want to make it very clear that, the law allows people to now carry a gun in public without a concealed carry permit, meeting certain criteria, right? You have to be 21 and you have to meet, certain things. But ultimately, you can't do that on school grounds. You can't bring a gun to a football game. You can't bring a weapon into a basketball game. And there's a variety of reasons for that, right? And we want to create a safe environment, let those individuals who are authorized to do so carry those weapons. I just wanted to point that out to you moving forward. And obviously, there's been an issue at School Public where, somebody had their gun with them, got into an argument with a parent, decided to shoot it off into the air. We want to avoid that, right? And we've had fights in our stands between parents. We've had issues even this year with a fight at one of our football games with adults. We don't want those things to escalate into somebody using a weapon at that time. So I just wanted to mention that one at this time. The next item, let me go to the next page, which is item E. The salary schedule adjustments as listed there for, what we did was we went through and looked at a number of salary schedules based on the current employment and looking at current salary schedules in other districts around this area and across the state. So we're making those two adjustments to the Director of Food Service and the Director of Transportation and to make those positions competitive as we move forward. I want to mention F because we want to have bus drivers, right? We need subs that will come to our district and work for us. And we did this last year at the same rate, but I'm just recommending officially that for this year, starting back in August, that we have them, substitute bus drivers start at step 0 at their hourly rate on the OPSI schedule. So like they were a full-time employee, but they would just get paid at that hourly rate, okay? And then we adjusted 3 sub rates for secretaries, or asking you to adjust secretary, cafeteria playground aide, and teacher substitute rates. We went through those and looked at comparison districts and made these adjustments so that we can be competitive moving forward. It's not to say that the other ones might not get changed in the future, maybe next year, but when we looked at these, we felt it was time to move these forward based on the comparisons and helping us to find qualified individuals to do those positions as substitutes. Item H are the district-sponsored clubs. We do this every couple of years as we update the list and so forth. District clubs are the ones that are academic in nature, and you have the list of those that I shared with you previously. It's a lot. Any questions on that before I ask you to approve that in one motion, A through H?
You said there was in 2017, the enrollment survey. How often is that?
So we did that as a result of doing the facilities assessment. And that's going to be one of the discussions that once they come back with the, when we did the facilities master planning. When they come back with the facilities assessment, that'll be one of the conversations. They could recommend that, but it'll be interesting to see because our enrollment right now has been pretty consistent over a 15-year period, roughly. We've only fluctuated basically about a 200 range of students. And with growth of housing, right? It's just not been the right, in my mind, the right housing to include students with it to some degree. So, yeah, we could look at that again, potentially, of having an outside third party do that. That's what we did at that time.
Gotcha, perfect, thank you.
There's no official schedule for doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I do the enrollment report every year and provide it to the board in September, just to kind of give a comparison of where we've been. Try to hit equal times of the year, right, in September, just so you have an idea of kind of where we're starting off the year. If it fluctuates significantly, I would say, I would share that with you during one of the other meetings. You know, but at this time, it's been pretty consistent. We used to actually, when I first started, we would put enrollment numbers on the agenda. Okay, we went up this, because it was just going, you know. That was back to when Randy Hardy was here, because it was, you know, we increased 1,000 students over like a, what was it, about 5 or 6 year period. And that was the concern, that we were gonna continue to do that, so,
Yeah, it was a line item, I remember
yeah.
that.
And we didn't have the influx from the apartments in Waterville.
We have not
That was
seen
one
an
of our-
influx.
Yeah.
An increase a little bit, but
Yeah.
not an influx, no.
yeah.
And I think there's 2 more buildings going up right now.
There's, yeah, it's one.
So, and then you have to also, around the mall, right, is the potential for another 250-unit complex. And then within that whole development zone that they're trying to put in there, there's condos, you know, probably going to be 55 and older. And then there's they're calling it a medium-range home, which is somewhere between 250 to 350 in their mind. So I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if, if that's going to increase younger families to potentially purchase those and then have children. I just don't know at this time. But that still has to get to the final stages of approval and so forth, so.
Any other questions for Jim? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
And a second.
I'll second.
Kyle?
Kyle. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
All right, thank you, Jim, and your personnel recommendations.
Thank you. Resignations and retirements, you see those listed there. I want to go to B, employment. I'm always very happy to say that we're adding 3 bus drivers. Thank you, Tammy, for the work that you do and trying to secure those people into those positions. Right now, I would also share with anybody who's in the audience or who's listening too, we are in desperate need of special education aides. This is a trend. I was talking to superintendents on Friday across the state of Ohio, but also across the nation as well. It's basically teachers, bus drivers, maybe depending on the month, 'cause those 2 things could fluctuate, but also special education aides. And so if you're interested in doing that work, we have open positions available for you. So anybody who's interested in doing that, please contact Mr. Herman or Dr. Contat, who can assist you with that as well. Item C, substitute employees, those as listed. That way, I think we also have a bus driver on there as a substitute as well. Actually 2, so that's good. That's good news. Item D, volunteers. We always appreciate those who will volunteer in our buildings, so we thank them for doing that in the various positions that they will do those, the volunteering for those buildings and departments. Item E, limited supplemental contracts as listed there. We're just still filling different things that are mostly supplemental positions, so in athletics and/or sound and lighting, those types of things with those. Item F, supplemental contracts, as listed there. More supplemental contracts for various positions, especially for our mentors, and setting those up for our brand-new teachers, as you see listed there as well. Item G are the contract amendments for those individuals and adjusting their contracts. That's a lot, once again. What questions do you have?
The mentors are for new teachers, that was the question. I didn't know
Yeah.
if they were student teachers or student aides or they're.
Yeah, they're for teachers, brand-new teachers who are coming to the district. There's a process the state requires you to go through. We provide those mentors for specific years that they have to go through that program. They've got to do certain things. You know, they have a five-year resident licensure still, right, for their first 5 years, and they have to meet those requirements, and then they can get a regular license after that. So we have to help facilitate that process with them, which is good too, because obviously, I mean, any new job, right, you need some help and understanding your role. You know, it's not just walking into the classroom and providing lessons. There's lots of things that go into that, and we want to be there to help them with that.
Any other questions?
Just a comment too, I think it's always nice, not that we get retirements and resignations, but I read through all these letters and it's always, I think, you know, almost all the time, they're so appreciative of their time here at Auntie Wayne and thankful for the position and usually apologizing for leaving us in a spot where we need to hire somebody else, but the letters of resignation are almost always all positive comments, so it's a nice gesture on that side to see that.
And most of the time, we're losing people because they're moving out of the area,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
especially in our OPSI side of employment, right? They're, you know, I think we had a special education aide moving to Bryan, you know, one to Michigan, you know, because they're having to relocate. So those things happen, and that leaves us some holes to fill,
Yep.
and we want to do that. And so I'm sure there's qualified people, hopefully in our community, that will step up and work with us to do that.
Anything else? If not, I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve?
And a second?
I'll second.
Jana. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right.
Thank
Did-
you.
Did we get, no one signed up to speak? Okay.
I would think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I didn't catch where that was coming from.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, if you would state your name, and I think he's given you a,
It's been a few months. My name is Frank Dudas. I live at 11850 Stiles Road. I had a question for the gentleman from Waterville, but he's been to 2 school board meetings in 33 years, and as soon as he got you guys to vote on his project, he bailed. So guess I can't really ask him a question, but I was wondering this downtown project that he's planning, if it's going to increase any revenue for the schools as far as like levies or taxes. And the other thing that I thought of, well, I've only lived here 2 years, and Mr. Fritz knows me by name, so, we have a working relationship, I think. But anyways, one of the hot topics going on right now, and there's actually a meeting for it tonight, is the Waterville Amphitheater. And when you guys were talking about the Waterville downtown, now I don't know if you guys can answer this question or not, but the only question I have is, I'm wondering if they build that, kind of like Levis Commons brought in tax revenue for us, and the pipeline brought in tax revenue for us and stuff like that, if you guys have any idea on, because I've seen a lot of negative stuff about it, and I'm on the fence, I'm not really for it, I'm not really against it, but I just wondering if we can find out like how much tax revenue that would actually bring into our schools. That's all I got. Thanks.
I don't know.
Make comment.
Yeah, I don't really have an idea on what
At
that
this
would be.
point, in talking to the county auditor's office, they just provided numbers. They had a request, I believe, from the mayor, what they thought the values would be. I don't even know, I have not seen those, I don't know. Alls I know is that there was an email communication, because at one point it was made public that the school was asked to be involved in that, and, you know, we really, at that point, hadn't, that we thought. But we would get tax revenue just like we would from any other development. So the project that's going on downtown Waterville, their DRD, we will receive revenue. That's kind of what that's the reason the board approved that document tonight. It allows the school to, you know, receive the revenue, but at the same time, they benefit and can use funds for the infrastructure and changing all that. We necessarily aren't giving up revenue for them to do that. So the schools are made whole anytime we do any type of or any type of agreement like that. And if they were doing it for less than 10 years, they wouldn't even need board approval, but since they're doing it for a longer period of time, so it just requires board approval. But we will receive revenue just like we would. I haven't made a call to ask what that amount would be. I just saw an email communications from the auditor's office because of some things that were said, and I was just wanting to know what's been given out there, what are we missing here, so.
Did they set the value on
They won't set the value until, values are set January 1st of each year. If you can, not that they work New Year's Day, but they always tell me it's January 1st. So, you know, depending on when that would be built, you know, it's going to be what the value is January 1st of each year.
Yeah, one of the things that I mentioned about that too is that the Andersons building was going to be valued, or it was supposedly built for, was it 60-some million? It was 60 or 70 million.
Big number, yeah.
Right.
And it got valued at 18,
It's under 20.
it's under 20 million. So once it's valued, then we know exactly how much it's going to bring into the district. And it's just like the Nexus Pipeline, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars of value that it was supposed to be valued at, and we're getting 37% of what they thought the value was going to be of that. So till they set it, we won't know. And Mr. Pedro did have to go to that meeting, yeah.
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 Yes, that's why I laughed.
I think that meeting's got a little bit more fun than this one was.
Yeah. And if you, I mean, I'm sure he would gladly take a phone call,
Yeah.
too, if you want to speak with him directly on anything else.
But your short answer, Frank, is yes. We receive tax revenue.
Yeah, yeah, he told us that he had to leave
Yeah,
to
he
go to
that
that
he had
meeting.
another meeting anyway, so. Is there anyone, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Going once, okay. If not, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move
Gina?
to adjourn.
6:49.
And a
I'll second.
second. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right, our next meeting is October 10th, right here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.